Yes.
What economic actions would you take as president to improve the standard of living for those in poverty?
In the United States?
Yeah, in the United
There's a long answer to that. I'll try to give you a summary. This is something I've spent many, many days and weeks on. So the simplest things to do are to raise the minimum wage, which we actually did in 6 states in the last election. It ought to be done nationally, and I think it might, now that we've got a Democratic Congress. Organize workers into unions so that if they're working, they can earn a decent wage and be a part of the middle class. I think helping people save is another important idea, which means we set up these development accounts for lower income people so that we match what they're able to save. Our housing policy in this country is a complete disaster, and we've got to radically change our housing policy so that we create more mobility for lower income families and don't concentrate them all in the same neighborhoods, which is what we've done over the last few decades. Access to college, which is really critical to kids being able to have a better life. We've been cutting billions of dollars out of the budget for kids to be able to go to college, which is a mistake. What we ought to do instead, I believe, is something we have been doing called College for Everyone, which basically pays for the tuition for kids who are willing to work when they're in college. We're doing it on a small scale as a model in North Carolina. I think we also have some really very difficult structural issues in poverty, around poverty, that are harder to deal with. So, some of them are societal, some of them are cultural. You know, when you spend a lot of time with low-income families, one of the things you see is a lot of young teenage women getting pregnant multiple times. And it's just, you know, when they live in poverty to begin with, they don't finish high school, and they have 3 children by the time they're 16. It feels almost hopeless. I mean, how do you change you just a new generation over and over again. So dealing with this, issues like teenage poverty, teenage pregnancy, the whole problem of young, particularly African-American men who live in the inner city and feel like they're either going to die or go to prison and just kind of give up. And we have to find ways to reach them. There have been some very specific programs in communities around the country that have been very successful with that, as there have been with teenage pregnancy. But it's one of those things where it's hard to figure out exactly what the government's role is, other than to provide seed money and help for the local organizations who are mentoring and providing support for those families. Those, I think, are the big ideas. I mean, I would do things like create 1 million new housing vouchers, but not use them to concentrate people in the same neighborhoods. I think we ought to have 1 million new what I call stepping stone jobs for chronically unemployed people who want to go to work, but because they don't have the resume to get a decent job. We can find places for them to work in our parks and our community centers, in public jobs. This is I warned you to begin with. I can talk about this for hours, so I'll stop there because they're going to get nervous about the time. But this is something I've spent a huge amount of time on, and I have a lot of ideas about what we need to do. And I don't think you can deal with poverty. What you can do is you can lift millions of people out of poverty with a good economy, raising the minimum wage, and probably expansion of the earned income tax credit. But the harder core families that live in poverty are going to require much more than that. And all these things that I just talked about, and by the way, including health care, we need universal health care, if we don't deal with all of them, then it's very hard to reach the group that most people now think of as intractable. But we can get to them and change their lives if we do all these things, but it requires us to do all of them.